that whatever accusation he brought against Satan, he would also bring against, he would insult God. And this is what Jude's talking about with the rest. Now, let me go down to the way of Cain. Now, the way of Cain means what? The religion of admiring the works by his own hand and not faith. That was the way of Cain. Cain's way was what? By the ability of man to do his own thing and not relying on the faith of what God could do. Remember when they began to build the Tower of Babel? What does the word say there? It said, we made brick and we did not use stone. And say, listen, it said, we made brick and didn't use stone. Why? Who uses stone? Who made stones? God's the only one that can make a stone. Their pride started creeping back in because they did what? We made brick. And how do you make brick? You have to use your own hands. And they made brick and said, look what we have made. And they started building a tower. And it displeased God because God said what? Look at man. And when they get all together and don't get the heart of God and use it by faith, they will do everything in their power to turn against God. You know one of the main reasons why they built the Tower of Babel? Because they said, God should not have the upper heaven and we have the lower heaven. Well, I can't go into all this. Okay. Now, pride sets in. Jude's trying to explain to them about the heresy that's creeping into the church. What's the heresy? What's the heresy that's creeping in? Any false truth. Any man-made viewpoints and doctrine. This is why I'm always very, very cautious with everybody. Now, I'm going over my time. Is that okay? All right? I'm going over my time. All right. Because I just feel this is so very important. You know what the church is worried about now? The church is not so worried about some churches, not all churches, but a lot of churches they're not worried about the heresy that has creeped into the church. They're worried about the unpolitical viewpoints coming into the church. We want to be politically correct instead of scripturally correct. This is why I heard leaders saying they didn't believe that Adam and Eve were actually real people. But it's a nice way to begin about the creation of God. It's a nice viewpoint. You know what that is? That's heresy. But you know what it sounds like? It sounds, don't it sound like to the world, very politically correct? Then guess what you can do? You can do then anything with the Bible that you want to do. You can turn any of its truth in any form or fashion by your own opinion, your own thought life, your own experiences of life. How many of y'all know people that have experienced life in such a way they've made this statement? I really don't believe there's a hell. You ever heard people say that? I've heard many people say that. Pastor Dan, I just don't believe there's a hell. All the stuff I've gone through in life and all that I've had to go through and all the torment and all the anguish, I just believe hell's right here. You know what? That sounds politically correct, but it's absolutely false. How many of y'all know people, listen to me now, listen to me very good. You won't be in hell 1 second. You're believing it. You won't be there 1 second and you know there's a hell. Do you know, you go back and do the research yourself, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? The number one subject Jesus taught and preached on the most was hell. Because he came so that we might do what? Start to begin to turn our faith around in such a way that we believe once again in this word, so that we'll believe in the Christ that came to this world and receive him as Lord and Savior, so we can walk through this lifetime no matter what comes at us, no matter who it comes through. And our faith will be in such a position that we can go through and come out the same way. Now watch this now. If you're going to write something, I want you to write this down. Put watch out. And then put two those period marks. You know, right beside that?
Exclamation mark.
Thank you, Wesley. Put watch out and a comma. See, you forgot the comma. When your faith goes into an issue, and comes out in a different condition. Watch out when your faith goes into an issue. What issue? Any issue. Any issues of life. I don't care what it is. I don't care who you're talking to. I don't care who you're talking with. Watch out when you go into any issue and your faith comes out in a different condition. Meaning what? Your faith got distorted by somebody else and you began to believe something that's not in this word. What do you think Jude's telling these people? Look at verse 5 again. Watch what he's saying. But I want to remind you, though you once knew this. He's saying what? You went into this one way. Now you're coming out in another condition. You once knew what I'm going to tell you. You once believed what I'm telling you. You once walked in what I'm telling you. Now you've come out of these issues because of heresies that have crept in to the church, and now your faith is in a different condition.